Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for those having the time till the end of that. What amazing 2 days, aren't they? What amazing 2 days, I have to say. And that is due to, first of all, Linda Davis. Thank you so much for the very great moderation, and it is of course thanks to all of the staff of the Auswärtiges Amt, of our Foreign Office, of our ministry of course. And all those in the consortium which have made this event possible. If we speak over the days, if we meet around this hall, if we meet in the evening, we don't see how much effort is behind such an event. So really, thank you so much, and you can be assured that this work will be on your shoulders also for the next year. And I think what is very important, we have had this year ever more ministers and vice ministers, 45 out of 100 countries. So, but that also means there are some 55 missing for those countries which haven't sent their ministers. We have had ever more CEOs. We have had, as we heard, ever more women, which is just great, amongst the CEOs and amongst the panelists. And I think we have had ever more startups in the whole process. Thanks to the German Energy Agency at that point of time, because these startups, that is together with Fridays for Future, our future. Because that is the brain developing our future of tomorrow. And therefore, I'm really proud, we are really proud that these startups could manage to come here, to present themselves, and that we were able to select the winners which presented their ideas on the panel. I think that is a very, very important point. It is a very important part of the overall Berlin Energy Transition dialogue that we include the startups in the whole setup. So the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue has, I would say, become the leading energy event worldwide, and you can be sure that we, the German government, is really proud to host it. We are really proud to host it. Why? Very simple, because it is some sort of gathering together with the panels, exchanging views. But on the other hand, everybody knows that everybody else is there. And I think that's the very, very important point, that we have a nucleus of where we can discuss the future of energy, where we can discuss the future of climate, where we can ask ourselves, are we going to take action or are we only going to discuss? And when I met various colleagues around the world from the business sector, from the political sector, I have really had the impression that a lot of activity is going on. And a lot of people are very much encouraged of taking action if they haven't done so far. So I think that is the very important part of the Berlin Energy Transition Dialogue. And for us, it's important to know what have we learned. It's that sort of political implication. And we have learned hundreds and thousands of things, I think, in the last 2 days. But I will pick out perhaps some 8 aspects of what we have learned. First of all, it's nothing new, but again, we've learned that it's really fascinating to exchange experience. Not to reinvent the wheel twice, 3 times, 4 times, 7 times, but to take the experience from other countries, take the experience from other companies, and to ask yourself, is this possible also to be adapted by myself, or how do I have to change that? I think that is extremely important, because very often, and if I'm talking about German politics, we are only looking in this little tiny country. And we are facing so many little tiny problems in Germany. And for us, this 2 days is the perfect opportunity to open our minds and to ask ourselves, is all that problematic, itty-gritty, really that important thing if we're talking about a global energy transition and a global action for climate change? Second point is that we've learned that only a holistic view, or call it only a holistic approach on the energy transition, will work. We will have no chance if we select certain sectors, if we select certain infrastructure, if we select certain customers, if we select certain producers, or if we select certain applications. We can only win the game if we view all those in a very holistic view, combine them together, all the sectors, all the infrastructures, talking about gas infrastructure and electric infrastructure and heat infrastructure all together, not separating them. And then we know, and we are pretty clear, that the world will not be all electric, but it will be much more electric. But that does mean that we have to find also solutions for those parts which will not be electric, because infrastructures provided for that will not help compared to if we use it in a gaseous format, the energy or whatever. So the holistic view, I think that was for me very important during those 2 days, is key. What else have we learned? The third point is it's time, if we have not acted so far, to act now. I think it was said very clearly, not only Fridays for Future, it's about the question, are we really serious that we take action, or are we just debating? We have had today our first climate cabinet in Germany, so we formed a cabinet because we still have a dissent in Germany on how to tackle the climate agenda and the climate law. So today there was the first climate cabinet, and that is going forward because we need to act, and I think every country has to do so. Fourth point, what we've learned again and again, but I'm never tired to say so. We can only win if we view what I call loving twins together, and that is renewable energy and energy efficiency. And I very often hear that both are fighting each other because they say if we need more energy, then we can deploy more renewables. For Germany, a very simple figure is that we have an energy demand which is at about 2,500 terawatt hours, and out of those, we produce with wind and PV 160. So that means if we're not going to reduce the 2,500 and increase the 160, we will never ever come to the solution, which means decarbonization of our energy demand. So energy efficiency and renewable energy, again, that was the lesson learned, are to be loving twins. Fifth point, what we've learned, price tags for CO2. Yes, what I understood is the only questionnaire which was answered to 100% by yes was, do we need a price for CO2? And of course, it's quite clear that if we want to avoid something, and that something doesn't have any price at all, how should we drive worldwide economies to avoid that something which costs nothing? There are different ways on doing that. We have the European system. We are lagging behind in Germany in the non-ETS sector, but it's quite clear that if we not agree on pricing CO2, we will never ever succeed to the target we all agreed in Paris. And that comes along with a sixth point, which is the financial sector. I a little bit disagree what you've said before, because I have the opinion that the financial sector is already acting. The financial sector is very much looking on risk mitigation. And specifically, if you look to the big funds, and that was also discussed during the 2 days, the big funds worldwide, they are not keen to invest in CO2 high and CO2 risky innovations. They are very keen on investing in CO2 low investments because they see a risk associated with CO2. And that they call risk mitigation. That is all for the big funds. And of course, if we would agree and if we would come to a CO2 price, then of course the financial sector would even be much more advanced in taking the approach towards CO2 low or free investments. What else have we learned? What we have learned is that digitalization certainly is the key to almost everything of a business model in the future. It's not only Marek's Noah, it is the huge bunch of information which can flow from everywhere to elsewhere. And those business models associated with that and the possibility of making everybody, not those sitting here in the room, but everybody in the world, producers or consumers, that is something which really changes this whole game completely. And I think we have not yet understood as legislators, where do we have to keep our fingers off and where do we have to set regulation which allows the digital new business models to appear in reality. That is something where we have to have a much more stronger dialogue between the digitalization industry, the startups, to know what their business models is, and then as legislators react accordingly. At least we in Germany see that there is a lot still to learn in order to understand their business models and the way we are regulating the energy market. And the last point, but my colleague will touch upon that, of course, a little bit in detail, is that the energy transition will change the world completely. I think that is something we have learned the last 2 days again in terms of innovation. And it was said rightly before, be it technical innovation, be it financial innovation, be it legislative innovation. It will change the world completely towards new allies, towards new countries which do trade with each other, towards almost everything. And I think that is very important, not having fear of that change, but trying to use the opportunities. And I think what is absolutely clear, that if a single country or a region decides not to be part of that energy transition, they won't stop it at all. It will happen. And they will be the losers at the end of the day. So that is also the point, that it's not only for climate reasons time to act. I think it's for living reasons, for the reason that an economy can survive, time to act, because otherwise the energy transition will take place without taking advantage from a certain economy in place. So I think that is something we have learned. There are a lot of other lessons learned, of course, but that came to me when I heard the various presentations, the panels, that this is extremely important. I can assure you that we as the German government will continue our pathway. Don't copy us, because that would be wrong. No country is like Germany. No country brought down the costs of renewables that extensively and has now in its backpack a lot of money sitting, which we have to put on the consumer's bill. We put it as an asset. We thought that it is good to invest in that asset, and we were proved right. But you can learn from us, and we can learn from you. And I think that is the very important point. And if we continue understanding that learning from each other is the key for a global world which will lead us into the future, into a CO2-free future, then I think we will see at least the same amount of people, at least the same high-level quality discussion also 2020, and perhaps the remaining 55 countries which have not sent their ministers or vice ministers around will do so in 2020. Thank you very much again for joining us, and thanks a lot.